Hi, I'm David, and welcome to this week's lesson. Today, we're going to look at a short story called Down in the Tube Station at Midnight. This is a supernatural mystery story, and of course, it's got the typical twist in the tail ending. I think your students will love this story. As I read the story, please read along with me. The story is divided into sections, and after each section, there will be some vocabulary. I will give you some keywords and the meanings of these words. So please recite these after me as well. And of course, after that, there is the reading comprehension questions section. I read a question. I give you some time to answer. Try to think of the right answer. And then I will give you my model answer. My model answers might be slightly different to your answers, but don't worry about that. As long as your answers are correct, that's okay. There are different ways to answer one question. Okay, are we ready? Let's begin. Down in the tube station at midnight. Section 1. I'll be glad when this shift is over. It was close to midnight, and John was just finishing work at the Grey Park tube station. He hated the late shifts. It was too quiet for one. Then, when he finished work, he had to get home. It wasn't too far. Sometimes he took a taxi. But other times he walked, and the streets were empty, with strange shadows creeping across between the houses. His workmate for the evening, Colin, stretched and kept his feet up on the desk. Just behind his feet, the bank of security camera monitors. Each screen showed a different view of the station's interior. Keywords: shift, shift. A fixed period of time during which a person works, especially one of two or more periods into which a working day is divided. Shadow, shadow. A dark shape that appears on a surface when something stands between a light source and that surface. Interior, interior. The inside part of something, such as a building or a vehicle. Reading comprehension questions. 1. Who is the main character in this story? John is the main character. 2. Where does the story take place? It takes place at the Grey Park tube station. 3. What time of day is it? It is close to midnight. 4. What does John think about working the late shift? He hates it because it is too quiet. 5. How does John sometimes get home after work? He sometimes takes a taxi or walks. Section 2. Soon done, said Colin. See this last train in? Then we can all get out of here. John waited a second to see if Colin would volunteer to do the rounds of the station. One of them had to walk around the whole place just to make sure there were no people left inside. Sometimes are drunk. One time they found a dog, whimpering and lost. But Colin stayed glued in his seat. Clearly, he had no intention of moving. Guess I'll go down and have a look, said John. Colin peered over his shoulder towards him. You don't mind, mate? John shrugged. One of us has got to do it. Keywords. Volunteer. Volunteer. To offer to do something without being asked or required to do it. Intention. Intention. A plan or decision to do something in a particular way. Whimpering. Whimpering. Making soft, low crying sounds, usually as a sign of pain, fear, or unhappiness. Reading comprehension questions. 6. Who does John work with? He works with Colin. 7. What does John think about Colin's attitude towards work? He thinks Colin is lazy and doesn't do much. 8. What sometimes happens at the end of the night in the station? They sometimes find drunks or lost dogs. 9. Does Colin offer to help John? No. He stays seated and lets John do the work. Section 3. John grabbed his walkie-talkie and turned it on. He turned the dial and spoke into it. Keep an eye out for me, he said into the walkie-talkie. His voice carried loudly to the walkie-talkie on the desk and made Colin jump. Colin shifted his weight and tried to sit up straight. Yeah, sure, I'm right here. John smirked and walked out the door. A short corridor led to another door and a public walkway. Both sides of the walkway were filled with advertising. An overflowing rubbish bin with discarded fast food wrappers and fizzy pop cans at the bottom of it. John marched down the corridor. He could hear the last train arriving. Keywords. walkie-talkie, walkie-talkie. A small, portable, two-way radio device that allows people to speak to each other over short distances. Corridor, corridor. A long, narrow passage inside a building with doors leading into rooms on either side. Discarded, discarded. Thrown away or got rid of because it is no longer wanted or needed. Reading comprehension questions. 10. What does John take with him when he checks the station? He takes a walkie-talkie. 11. How does Colin react when John speaks into the walkie-talkie? Colin jumps because John's voice is loud over the radio. "12. What does John see in the walkway? He sees advertising posters and an overflowing rubbish bin. 13. What can John hear as he walks along the corridor? He hears the last train arriving. Section 4. It pulled into the station, and then he heard Colin's tired, monotone voice. "This is Grey Park, the final stop. Please alight here and leave the station. Thank you." Colin never had any enthusiasm in his voice. Some of the other guys that worked in the station would put some energy into their voices or put on a funny voice. It made them laugh and helped them get through the long and quiet hours. But never Colin. As John made his way to the platform, he met the passengers leaving the station. The usual late-night crowds. Keywords: monotone, monotone. A way of speaking or singing in which the voice stays on the same level or pitch without any variation. Alight, alight. To step off or get down from a train, bus, or other form of public transport. Enthusiasm, enthusiasm. A strong feeling of excitement or eagerness about something. Reading comprehension questions. 14. What announcement does Colin make? He announces that Grey Park is the final stop and asks passengers to leave the station. 15. How is Colin different from the other station workers? He has no enthusiasm in his voice. 16. How do the workers sometimes make the job more fun? They sometimes put on funny voices over the announcements. Section 5. A couple of young guys, drunk and full of swagger. "All right, mate," they said to John. "Nice hat." John gave them a curt nod and walked on. The two lads laughed loudly and broke into a rendition of a popular song. A man in his 40s, looking weary and deadbeat. Another poor guy doing a late shift somewhere in the city. An elderly woman clutching her bag and looking nervous. A young woman, her eyes on the ground and walking straight ahead. The last strays of the night, all heading home or to anywhere else in the night that might welcome them. Keywords: swagger, swagger. A way of walking or behaving that shows a great deal of confidence, often in a way that seems arrogant or boastful. Curt, curt. Describing a response or manner that is very brief and appears rude or unfriendly. Weary, weary. Feeling very tired, especially as a result of a lot of effort or hard work over a period of time. Reading comprehension questions. 17. What kinds of people does John see leaving the station? He sees a couple of drunk young men, a weary man, an elderly woman, and a young woman. 18. How do the young men interact with John? They greet him in a joking way and comment on his hat. 19. What kind of mood do the other passengers seem to be in? They seem tired, nervous, or withdrawn. 20. Describe the people John sees at the station. Young drunk men, a tired middle-aged man, a nervous elderly woman, and a young woman looking at the ground. Section 6. On the platform, the train was still in place, all of its doors open. John nodded at the train guard. He recognized him from the dozens of times he had seen him before, but could not remember his name. All the train had to be checked to make sure no people were left sleeping on seats, no forgotten items. God forbid any bags or boxes left on the train. Then they had to call the police. John walked along the platform, checking every carriage. Everything looked in order. He waved at the guard, who waved back and got back onto the train. He heard the crackle of a radio. Then the doors hissed closed and the train pulled out of the station and into the dark tunnel. Key words: recognized, recognized. To identify someone or something you have seen or experienced before from memory. Carriage, carriage. One of the separate sections of a passenger train in which people sit during their journey. Crackle, crackle. A rapid series of short, sharp sounds, like the noise made by a radio with poor reception or a fire. Reading comprehension questions. 21. Who does John see on the train? Does he know this person? He sees the train guard, whom he recognizes but doesn't know by name. 22. Why does John have to check the train? To make sure no people, bags, or forgotten items are left behind. 23. What could happen if someone left a bag or item behind? They would have to call the police. 24. Where does the train go? It leaves the station and goes into the tunnel. Section 7. In a few seconds, John was all alone on the platform. He clicked on the walkie-talkie. Just checking the north end of the platform, he said. All clear up there? The walkie-talkie crackled, and Colin's voice came through it, tinny and alien. Just that one bloke by the seats. John kept walking. He hoped the man on the platform wasn't drunk. They could be difficult to deal with sometimes. But he could see no one. You sure? He said into his radio. I can't see anyone. He's right there, said Colin. Hang on, he's getting to his feet. Key words: tinny, tinny. Describing a sound that is thin, weak, and metallic in quality, as if coming from a small or poor quality speaker. Alien, alien. Feeling strange, unfamiliar, or completely out of place in a particular context or environment. Bloke, bloke. An informal British word for a man, used in everyday speech. Reading comprehension questions. 25. Which part of the station does John go to next? He goes to the north end of the platform. 26. What does Colin report seeing on the platform? Colin reports seeing a man by the seats. 27. What does John hope about the man Colin sees? He hopes the man isn't drunk. 28. What does John notice as he looks around? He notices that no one is there. Section 8. John peered ahead and saw no one. He turned and looked behind him. No one there either. Colin was such an idiot. This was another problem with him. He wasn't very observant. Are you sure you're looking on the right platform? Asked John. He would talk to the station chief about Colin. This was not good enough. Yes, platform 1, said Colin. I can see you walking towards the camera. John squinted into the far end of the platform. He couldn't see anyone. There's no one here, he said to himself. Keywords. Observant, observant. Quick to notice things around you, paying close attention to detail. Squinted, squinted. To look at something with the eyes partly closed in order to see more clearly or to block out bright light. Platform, platform. A raised flat surface along the side of a railway track where passengers get on and off trains. Reading comprehension questions. 29. What does John think about Colin's observation skills? He thinks Colin is not very observant. "30. Where does John look to try to find the man?" He looks at the far end of the platform and behind him. "31. Does John find anyone?" No, he finds no one. 32. Who does John plan to talk to about Colin? He plans to talk to the station chief. Section 9. He carried on walking to the very end of the platform, past the two benches on the side. He stopped and looked behind him again. Maybe Colin was looking at the wrong end of the platform. Not a soul around. John pulled the radio up to his ear. "Colin, are you sure? Please check again. I can't see anyone here." "He's right there," said Colin. "By the seats. He's just standing by the edge of the platform." John spun around. Nothing. He was the only person there. Keywords: soul, soul. Used informally to mean a person, often in expressions like "not a soul," to mean nobody at all. Edge, edge. The line or point where something ends or begins, such as the border of a platform next to the railway track. Spun, spun. The past tense of spin, meaning to turn around very quickly on the spot. Reading comprehension questions. 33. What does John see on the platform? He sees no one. 34. What does Colin insist he can see? Colin insists there is a man by the seats. 35. Does John see anyone? No, he does not. Section 10. Colin, is this some sort of a joke? I can't see anyone. The radio spluttered into life again. John, he's behind you. He's John. John dropped the radio from the side of his face. He spun around. Then he saw it. Keywords: spluttered, spluttered. To make a series of short, explosive sounds, often used to describe a radio or engine cutting in and out suddenly. Dropped, dropped. To let something fall from your hand, often quickly or without meaning to, due to surprise or shock. Spun, spun. The past tense of spin, meaning to turn around very quickly on the spot, here suggesting panic or alarm. Reading comprehension questions. 36. What warning does Colin give? He warns John that the man is behind him. 37. What happens at the end of the story? John spins around and sees something, but the story ends without revealing what it is. Okay, that's the end of the lesson. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope it was useful for you. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget, you can download the full lesson plan by clicking the link below. And I will see you next time. Thanks very much. See you next time.